Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. We provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is The Wise Ones. We have a very special guest who's backstage, but first, let's introduce the star of our show. This is his third show for today. He's getting a little bit of a feel of what it's like for me doing all these shows. It is a lot of work, but it's very exciting. Red is a very dear friend, has been recently helping me through a very tough time. He's also my book coach. He's a longevity expert. He is an Amazon #1 best-selling author himself, and he is someone who brings tremendous value in all of the research that he's done about longevity. So today we're going to be talking to someone who is also very wise, just like Red. Let's bring out red.olaughlin. Hello, Red.
Hello, Dr. Jacalyn. Just another wonderful day here in paradise with a little P here in the Houston, Texas area.
Are you sweating it out over there in Houston?
I love to sweat, actually. Yes, I was outside just before the show. I had an hour off between the last two shows and this one. And I did have to towel down just a little bit because I had a bit of a sheen, but I was not working very hard. But it's what it is. It's Houston. It's summertime. You go outside. It's what you do. But yes, I do.
I do as well, Red. And I'm here in Virginia and it's 90 some degrees, but I'm inside, so I don't even know what it's like outside. But anyway, let's get to the heart of the show. For people who are joining us for the first time, why don't you give a little bit of background about who you are and the value that you bring, not only to our platform, but to everyone you meet.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jacalyn. I'm a researcher. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat symptoms, and you'll always be treating symptoms. That's what I study. That's what I do. It's my passion. It's one of those things I really and truly enjoy. I fell in love with chemistry back about 15, 16 years of age in high school. Got a degree in it. Was unable to become a chemist because I got an invitation to Vietnam. All that aside, several years ago, my wife came down with breast cancer. As part of her chemo side effects and everything, I started getting back into the chemistry end of things, looking for what can I do. And my love of chemistry just blossomed again. And since then, I stopped writing books on self-improvement, motivation, those kinds of things. I was speaking around the country, selling things in the back of the room. And I started concentrating on health and wellness. And after a while, I focused strictly on longevity, age-related diseases, those kinds of things. On the next show coming up, Talking Heads, I'll be talking about pain management. I think it's number 4 out of 6, if I remember right. But we did a series on cancer. We did a series on weight loss. We did a number of different series on different aspects of health and wellness. And so that's what I do. I speak about it. I write about it. I talk about it. And then I also help authors get their books written. And I'm a publisher. So that's what I do. But a while back in one of the local Houston writing organizations, we had a monthly meeting. This is pre-pandemic. And I'm there just as a regular guest, and there's a guy and a gal in the back of the room just kind of sitting over there. So I go over and introduce myself, and sure enough, he's another author. And from that one little conversation, our, I guess, connection developed, and over months and subsequent that we've just kind of hit on things. He had a book, I think it's called Who Are You and When, or something like that. I'm trying to think of what the name of the book is. He's going to tell us about it here in a moment. Who Are You and Why, I think is what it is. But regardless, Brian Penso is a very, very active entrepreneur. He's involved in a lot of different enterprises. He is very articulate and especially adept at how the human brain works, which is kind of where the connection where he and I really excelled. So when you start looking at, how do we improve our self-esteem? How do we conquer certain kinds of problems that we have in business? How do we handle relationships? A lot of different things that Brian is very, very good at. So with that, I'm going to ask Brian to come on stage and introduce himself. Brian, unmute, please.
Oh, there it went. Pleasure to be here. Glad to meet you, Dr. Jacalyn. Yes, I've been a serial entrepreneur for many, many years. I build companies and I help people build companies. And what I like to do is I try to help people understand that they hold the keys to the lockbox that's holding them down. That's one of the things, the personal mind is, it records everything. And unfortunately, a lot of times we get bad information. And we're getting that from armchair experts or people that are not quite professionals. And we don't have the ability to detect whether or not that is a fact or if it's fiction or someone's opinion. And a lot of times people get stuck because they are listening to the wrong people, as a matter of fact, and getting the wrong data.
We have a technology problem today and we're trying to handle it. So hopefully we're not going to have too many glitches, but regardless, I find Brian, when we're sitting down having a cup of coffee or something, and you're just kind of connecting, that connection is there such that, we were total, I wouldn't say total alignment, but he kind of fills in some little gaps that I have. I think I do the same for him. And when we start talking about, well, I got this business I want to build, this is not working. And just like I guess we had earlier today, sometimes you put a thought in your brain. How can I do this? What can I do? And you just let it percolate there. And it may percolate for minutes, hours, days, even longer than a week. And then all of a sudden, like she was saying, she was getting a massage in Panama, and all of a sudden, the moment hit. And so part of what we have to do is ask ourselves the right questions. And if we do, and we have enough peripheral information, a lot of times that's going to prompt the answer that we need based on our own situation. Would you not agree there, Brian?
Oh, yes, sir. I've been telling people for many years, a problem cannot be solved on the same level or elevation of thinking that created it. That's where your masterminding comes in and associating, and, like me talking to you, you help me solve problems, and hopefully I do the same for you. But you've got to be able to expand your network and talk to the people that have like-minded thinking. That's what you have to be very careful of, because the most valuable piece of real estate you'll ever own in your life resides between your ears. So you have to protect what's going in and out, just like your bank account. And that is one thing that I've been speaking on for many years. You have to be very careful on who you associate with and what information that you're getting.
As a fellow author, you have a book out. Would you tell us a little bit about how that book got created? What was the impetus, and what value that people reading that book can get?
Well, I was speaking for many, many years on stage, and I kept having people ask me for a book. And I said, well, I don't have one. They said, well, you need one, because I've got people other places that don't have the privilege to be able to hear you speak. And the information that you're providing is very important. So I end up, buckling down and end up writing the book and released it. And it's basically a format that someone can get in there, and it's more of it's a personal look inside. How did I get here? What information did I get that I took as fact that was not fact? Taking the time to look in, saying, why do I think the way I think? Is it because I was manipulated to think this way? Or is it something that I'm actually making a decision on? So the book is basically an algorithm. It walks you through, kind of giving you some pointers of how you got here, what you can do to fix that, and then starting to build a solid foundation so you can restart again. Because life is like a canvas. If you mess up the canvas, you can always pull that canvas down, pull out another canvas and start again. And that's the beauty of expanding the mind, because every day is a new starting point.
Well, Brian, how do you learn from your experience? In other words, you failed, but what actually was it? The environment that caused you to fail? Was it your marketing message? In other words, we have all of the stimuli coming in. How do you help somebody actually determine, well, maybe this is the area you need to concentrate on? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. I mean, a lot of times when people get into a business, I mean, there's a lot of twists and turns, especially if you're in a brick and mortar type business. You've got taxes, you've got location, you've got this, you've got that. And a lot of times it's a huge mountain that looks to be that they need to climb. So what you have to do is start breaking it down. I mean, if you were trying to figure out your bills by throwing them in a blender and throwing them up in the air, everything is just total chaotic. And you have to break it down. And like I said, seek the advice from people that are here that have already done it. So that's where your coaching and your mentoring and your specific guidelines start to come in. Now, a lot of times people are afraid to fail, but what they don't understand is it's not really a failure. It might be a shortcoming, but now you've got better, more accurate data to make better decisions to start again. Remember, it's the canvas, pull it down, start again. And by doing that and expanding your network and the people that you're associating with, it helps to start eliminate those problems. And then you get to start climbing that ladder, and the road does straighten out. Eventually it gets a little bit easier as you go.
Well, you said the failure, and it's viewed in your brain. I'm a failure. That's what we don't want to have, because that goes right in here and cements itself. But if you say, well, I failed at networking, or I failed at financial control, or I failed at delivering a product on time, the failure associated with an event is one thing. A failure associated with you as an entity is a totally different mindset. And that, I think, is super critical, because when we're out and we're doing whatever we need to do for our business, if we're going around with this bubble in our head saying, I'm a failure, you're going to become one. But if you're saying, well, I failed at getting my 30-second, I can't connect with somebody. Well, maybe you need to get with somebody who has a really good 30-second elevator pitch, fine tune yours, find out what's keeping people awake at night. What problems can you solve? What do you have in your quiver that you can help somebody else? And I think if you approach it from that perspective, then that failure at whatever, okay, I know I'm getting a little bit better at it. I'm getting a little bit better now, but it's an incremental success path.
Right. I mean, the way I heard it in a lecture is you have a plan, a PDR, plan, do, review. You plan to do something, you do the doing this, you go through the steps. And then the thing that stumps most people is actually reviewing it, because people don't like to look and say, oh, I had a shortcoming, I didn't make it. But the review is the most important part of the cycle, because by reviewing and keeping track of where you've been and where you're going and where you want to end up. So by keeping track of that, you can actually say, okay, I did X, X, and X, and I expected this result, but I didn't get it. So let's go back and modify it and do an X, a P, and an X. So just small little changes and tweaks, and keeping track of it, because you have to keep stats. You don't know where you're at or how to get where you want to go by not knowing the steps that you've taken in the past that maybe you didn't get the exact results. So by keeping that in a format where you can take notes and learn from the past shortcomings, it makes your ability to move forward and smoothing out the road a whole lot easier, just by keeping track of where you've been.
Kind of like that famous line in Alice in the Wonderland: if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. It's just how fast do you want to get there? But I think what you're saying is absolutely correct in that regard. You do have to track what's going on. Now, many times we're tracking, but then you have something like a pandemic. Is the pandemic really the downfall of your business, or are you not promoting your business so that people who need your service, your product during a pandemic can get it?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, the world is constantly changing. And you have to evolve every time you get a new set of hands. It's like playing poker. You're not going to get a great hand every time, but you've got to be able to take the hand that you're dealt and try to play the game out the best that you can. I've got multiple companies. I do windshield chip repairs. I do electricity for people. I teach them how to, reduce their monthly bills and that sort of thing. Those are all items that are not going to go away, even if you have a downturn in the economy. People still driving every day. They're still getting chips. They have electricity. So you just have to steer your life and your business viewpoints based upon the hand that you're dealt. And it's constantly changing. And at times, sometimes your biggest turndowns in our society or events, they can be absolutely the best turnaround and the most influence on you as far as learning and cash flow if you learn to adapt as you go. That's one of the biggest keys, is being in present time. You can't you can't keep looking back. That's why the windshield is so much bigger than the rear view mirror. What's in front of you is important. Now you can look back for a history check or maybe a learning experience, but your focal point is what's in front of you and dealing with the hand that you're dealt.
So adapt, overcome. Now, I know pre-pandemic, it seemed like to me we had a conversation. You had 4 or 5 businesses then, some of them brick and mortar. It didn't matter, but you had your finger in a number of different things, and you're having good control over it. How did the pandemic affect you overall?
It slowed down delivery because a lot of times we kept producing product. We were there every day, but the part of the issue was we couldn't get on the job sites to deliver. But eventually, we had permits, we had to do all the mask thing and the preparation, and then it started to open up, but we never missed a beat. We just kept trucking along and, taking orders and making finished product, and we had to store a lot more of it. But what I was doing was in the concrete industry. So the product wasn't going to spoil. It didn't have a shelf life. So we just kept manufacturing every day, just like normal. And as it started to break up a little bit, because construction traffic on the road was allowed. So we just capitalized on that, and we just kept on going. I didn't even pay attention to it. You can't let everybody get in your ear and create problems that are not there. You deal with the problems as they show their weary heads. And we just dealt with them on a daily basis and just kept on going. So it didn't have much of an effect on us at all.
What was one of the first major lessons you learned as an entrepreneur?
I had a lot to learn. That was the big thing. I was young when I started. I was in my early 20s. And, when you're 20, you're bulletproof. You think you got all the answers. And oh boy, was I wrong. And I got started in business and made a lot of mistakes. And one of the things that I had to do was learn very rapidly. I delivered a lot of product to a guy. I trusted him. He didn't pay me, and I lost my house, and I became homeless for 7 years. And I just had to adapt again, So you play the cards that you're dealt, and that was one of the biggest lessons for me is I had to drop the ego and the attitude that I thought I knew what I knew. But what I did think I knew was getting me into a lot of trouble. So that was one of my biggest things that I had to set down and just really check myself at the door and open myself up to learn from those that have what it is that I wanted, not what I had. That made a huge difference for me.
Were you able to learn that actually in person from people, or did you use videos or read books, or what would you recommend to somebody starting out now as I need a mentor? What can I do?
Reading is one of the fastest ways to become successful. You can start with my book. It was called Who Are You and Why? The Evolution of You. It is on Amazon. And it's kind of a wake-up call. I think that's a foundation, but there's plenty of reads out there. There's lectures, there's seminars. I've traveled the United States for private mentorship, lectures, seminars, CDs, books. And I don't regret. I've spent well over 6 figures learning how to fix me, because once I figured out I was the biggest problem, admitting it and knowing where the problem is makes it a whole lot easier to fix. And then once I figured that out, it was just a matter of I became a sponge. I was around I made sure I hung around people that were very successful, people that were worth many, many, many millions of dollars, private yachts, big homes, that sort of thing, traveled the world, did what they wanted to do. Well, there's no better teacher. And you'll find that there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help you if you are willing to do the work and meet them halfway. There's a tremendous amount of valuable information out there. You just have to learn to tap into it and get out there and start rubbing elbows with them. Are you going to make some mistakes? Yes, but we learn from those and we keep on going and building that network. Your network is a direct contributing factor to your bank account or your net worth.
It seemed like to me when I was in corporate, even the military, they would train you to be a better whatever you were, whether it was shooting a rifle or flying an airplane or budgeting, or it doesn't matter what the skill was, that was set up so that you could be a better operator in the company. And it wasn't until very late in my career that I ended up in a multi-level marketing business. And a couple of the gurus around the country were having an event, 8-hour event on a Saturday in Houston. And so my wife and I went to it, and literally it just opened my eyes. I said, this stuff has been around forever and I don't know anything about it. And over the course of the next couple of months, I went to an event in Dallas, and at that event, the bug bit me. I mean, hard. I literally, for the next 3.5 years, I read more than a book a week, every single week, on how to improve my ability to do what I needed to do. And they were books. They were not videos at that time. I fell into that learning process down the road. But books are out there. They've been around for a long time. The same things work today as they did 50 years ago. Anything that you've learned new that would contradict that?
Absolutely not. The wealth of information that you can get, network marketing or direct marketing has got a bad rap, but people don't understand it is a real business. You have to do the work in order to make the money. I mean, I've been doing network marketing and direct marketing for many, many years, and it's provided a tremendous amount of learning for me. My communication skills, my networking skills, my ability to adapt and learn if I have to learn a new product or a new service, or I have to go get licensing. But as far as building a platform that will continue to pay you over and over and over, it's not like a job. You're going to work the business, you're going to get it going. And then if you do it right, you're going to have what's called organic growth. It's going to grow naturally. You're not there every day. Now, I still get checks in the mail every month from businesses that I built back in 2016 through 2020. So it's that passive income, that residual income that has to be established if you really want true wealth and success. Now, is it going to get you to, $20 million a year? Maybe not. But cash flow opens up doors for you to be able to do other things that you want to do. Maybe you want to start a podcast and you need some extra money. So you're making an extra $1,000 or $1,500 a month for your cameras and your microphones and your computer and that kind of stuff. So it is a gateway to allow you to make money when you sleep or when you work or whatever it is that you're doing. So it's definitely a helpful aspect. And I know there's a lot of people like us out there that definitely get it.
The only thing I've noticed here in recent times is the fact that social media marketing is a major thing that we didn't really pay much attention to more than 10 years ago. It's kind of developing. So if I had to pick something, marketing and advertising is out there, but there's so much free stuff that's available that it's there, but we don't know how to do it, or we don't know if our audience tunes in on that. I mean, those problems can be solved easily with a little bit of research, but that social media aspect of our lives, especially when you hold up one of these things here that literally gives you everything in the world that somebody 20 years ago couldn't even imagine.
Most definitely. I mean, the networking and the marketing on social media definitely has its place and it has its value. But I'm old school. I like a professional conversation, because when I'm talking with somebody, I can read their face, I can read their body language, I can understand their movements, I can see when they've got a little bit of a concern maybe of what we're talking about. And that allows me to communicate on a much higher basis. I get really in tune with the individual that I'm speaking with. So yes, I know there's people that, carpet bomb and, they're doing all of the social media and ad after ad after ad. And I'm sure it works. it just doesn't fit my wheelhouse. I mean, I've built a lot of different companies and I've communicated with a lot of people, and that personal one-on-one gives you a more solid foundation. I mean, when I start a business, I build a rock solid foundation. So I know that the longevity of it will last. I don't want to build something on a deck of cards and it just falls over. So for me, that personal touch and that personal communication with that individual makes all of the difference in the world. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like to do that. So you have to kind of make a decision. Do you hate communicating more or less than not having the life that you desire? And that's a question that everybody has to answer for themselves.
You mentioned the wheelhouse, and you mentioned being able to build that foundation. You also mentioned a short while ago the fact that because of some mistakes you made earlier in life, you were homeless for a number of years. How did that homelessness affect your ability now to really and truly build a firm foundation and know where you're going?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a pretty low time in my life. I was sleeping on a couch that I dug out of a dumpster that had 3 legs on it. I had to build a 4th leg with some 2x4s and bricks. But, you know, it got me to the point where I had to really start looking deep. What mistakes that I made? How did I get there? And what measures and steps or policies that I could create to make sure that that didn't happen again? For one, I trusted this guy on a full front load of concrete. And after that, I got half down. And then, you know, so I was limiting my chance of getting burned for the total amount. So I at least got my cost factor in, my delivery fees. You know, when I got the other half, that was the extra icing on the cake. But that was one of the big lessons that I learned. And the other thing, it was a communication thing. You know, I got busy on taking communication courses. And so I could professionally go out and talk to the buyers, talk to the purchasing agents at these major facilities that I was trying to get my foot in the door. You know, so that was when I went homeless, it was actually one of the best things that ever happened to me, to tell you the truth. It was like getting your butt handed to you. And it's like, okay, we have to start doing things a little bit differently here. And that's where the whole thing it really started to click. Now, it did take me some time to get out of there because I was also $124,000 in credit card debt at that time. But, you know, that really got me hunkered down to the point where I started making better decisions. I started researching more, communicating more with the people that could actually help me get to where I wanted to go. I hope that took care of that question.
It did. I want to go on a little lighter note because I haven't asked you this question yet, but I see on Instagram and other places you've kind of fallen in love with microgreens. Is that a fair statement?
Oh yeah, I've been growing microgreens for many years. It's a very high quality food. There's no pesticides, there's no chemicals. I'm a very lean eater. I'm 57 years old. I have no medical issues. I eat 1 meal a day. And I love growing stuff. I have an outside garden and I've got an inside garden. And I grow all the time. I mean, you basically plant and harvest in about 7 to 9 days. And the nutrient value on microgreens is about 40 to 70% higher than if you let the plant go to fruition and produce a head of cabbage or broccoli or whatever it is. So absolutely love doing it. And I do it on a regular basis. I actually just replanted yesterday.
There may be some people in the audience who are unaware of what microgreens are. Could you kind of give us a little bit more of a primer course and introduction onto that?
Sure. Microgreens are no different than seeds that you would get to plant, you know, broccoli or onions or lettuce of any different kinds, arugula, spinach, that sort of thing. And what you do is you densely plant in a small tray. It's usually a 9x10 or a 12x12. And then there's, I don't know how many thousands of seeds in these little trays. And then you germinate them. So you basically have thousands and thousands of small plants, whether it be lettuce or broccoli or whatever that is. And you grow them and you consume them. You eat them at a very young stage. The plants are only about 7 to 9 days when we actually harvest and eat them. And that's when they have their premium nutrient. They're some of the highest content of nutrients that's available in that plant. But so they're just baby plants. That's why they call them microgreens.
So I may have a plant that's about this tall, and you just come in there and cut it and eat it.
Yep, I let them go to they get to about 4 to 6 inches, depending on what species that I'm growing. And then you just cut them down, and it's a one and done. Those plants do not come back. They only have one single stem. Now, wheatgrass and that sort of thing, you can cut those; they'll come back, and you can do that. I think 3 times with wheatgrass that you can continue to grow. But with the food that's out there available right now, I prefer to consume food that I have 100% control over. No pesticides, no chemicals, no paints, and many other things that our food is being contaminated with before it ever hits our table. So I prefer just to do it myself, and I know what kind of quality food that I'm getting.
What about indoor lighting?
The thing about when a seed grows, it has the 2 little petals come out, the little round one is called a Jacalyn. The second set of petals that comes out is called a true leaf. Now, microgreens do not require full spectrum lighting. They don't need all the reds, the yellows, and the blues. You can grow microgreens underneath just a regular fluorescent shop light that you'd hang in your garage, because everything that seed needs and requires is within that seed. And it's only growing, like I said, about 7 to 9 days. So you don't need special lighting or fancy expensive lights. You just need a little bit of air circulation. I use 120 millimeter small computer fans that just keeps the air moving across the crop to make sure I don't get any mold spores or any kind of things settling on the tray. But yeah, lighting, you can grow them. You could grow them right there in your windowsill if you wanted to. There's a lot of people that do that.
Could you give me one or two quick recipes as to how I would eat them with my meal?
Well, I do a lot of salads. I'll make a salad, and then I grow a lot of pea sprouts and bean sprouts, very high in nutrition. And then my proteins, I'll put a couple hard-boiled eggs in there. They're also very good sauteed. You can put in some olive oil and then cut up some onion, which requires a little bit longer cooking. Throw in a little bit of garlic, maybe some bell pepper or some other type pepper that you like. Get those cooked down. And in about the last 2 to 3 minutes, you're just going to throw your microgreens in there and give them a flash cook, quick stir, because they're very small. You don't want to overcook them. That's one way. Another great recipe is to take fish, whatever type of fish you like, and layer it in the bottom of a baking dish and put your butter in there and your good olive oil, spice it up, bake your fish for about 20, 25 minutes, pull it out, layer the whole top of it with microgreens. I do sunflower seeds. I do pea sprouts, bean sprouts, radish shoots, and then put that on top and then bake it for about another 20 minutes. And when it comes out, it basically breaks down and you've got a very, very good fish stew. You can season it with garlic. You can do lemon peppers. You can do all kinds of things with them.
What got you involved with the microgreens?
I was trying to grow radishes in the backyard and I was failing really, really bad. And I ran into a guy that was sitting on a boat dock up on Lake Conroe when I was fishing, and he saw my boat that was all wrapped up, and we started talking. And he said, if you're gardening and doing that kind of stuff, he said, why don't you just grow microgreens instead? I said, well, I have no idea what a microgreen is. So he explained it to me, and within a matter of a week, I was planting in takeout trays, believe it or not, Chinese takeout trays. I was planting my seeds and dirt and stuff and start raising them. And I got addicted so bad to it. And then that's whenever I started building my vertical setup that's in my house. I've got one entire room that's delegated to nothing but growing microgreens.
If I remember correctly, fishing is a major part of your life.
Yes, I did. That was my goal when I was a young man, and why I started my journey is building companies and businesses. My goal as a young man was to fish professionally on TV against all my idols that I watched, back in the 70s when I was sitting there watching them on TV. And I decided at a very young age that that's what I wanted to do. It takes a lot of money and it takes a lot of free time. So I had to be self-employed and learn how to build systems in an organization so the company would run while I was out living my dream, but my cash flow didn't stop. But yes, I fished professionally all over the United States. I fished FLW, PAA, Bassmasters. I fished at the highest levels, which, I lived my dream. That's what I set out to do, and I got it. A lot of hard work, but it was worth every penny of it, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Recently we had a conversation about electricity.
Yes, sir.
And delivery costs and some other factors are never considered when we're just looking at price.
Right.
Could you elaborate a little bit?
Well, there's a lot of bait and switch in the electricity industry today. I mean, I did it back in the early to mid 2000s, and it was a little shady back then, but it's a whole lot worse now. And a lot of times what happens is when people are shopping for electric, they'll see the bullseye rate, which, oh, I got 11.2 cents a kilowatt. Well, what they're not looking at is what happens when your consumption drops down to that 500. It can double. And people are not looking at that. And typically on a rate like that, now let's say you're at 11.2 at 1,000 kilowatts. If you go up to 2,000, the 11.2 should drop. It should drop to 10.9, maybe 11. Well, I'm seeing a lot of companies out there that are disguising their grossly overcharging for electricity by going up on the higher consumption. Now, with any product, if you buy more, you should be getting it less. But I'm actually seeing additions of 4, 5, 6 cents per kilowatt as their consumptions go up. And then the rate as it goes down, if you're at 11 or 12, I'm seeing them double them to 25, 26%. And people do not realize that they are overpaying it because they're not taking the time learning as we do, going in and looking at all the fine details. So there's a lot of people really becoming or really being taken advantage of right now. And that's why I got back into the industry. So I love saving people money. I mean, I just saved a lady last week $262 on her electric bill. And the one before that was $301 less on a monthly bill. But you got to know what to look for. That's why when I need a book or I need advice, I go to the master. I go to Red. I want to get accurate information from the man that knows what's going on.
I moved to Houston back in the late 70s, and my electric bill was huge. I put insulation in the attic, went down. I did something else, went down. It seemed like I could put a Band-Aid on it, but not fix it.
Yep.
And my electric bill today is lower than it was 40 years ago.
Yep. Well, insulation technologies, the way they're building houses. Back then, the houses had a whole lot more ventilation, in them for the cross currents because we live in a very humid environment down here. So, we didn't have the mold issues back then as that we have now because the houses are so tightly sealed. So it definitely was a lot more difficult to keep a house cool back then and heated, either one. So with the technologies and everything, it's definitely changed. But now you just have to really pay attention on who you're doing business with, because there's a lot of them out there that aren't so nice to do business with.
I ended up changing air conditioners. I'm in the same house.
Yeah.
I've changed air conditioners, got windows, new roof, little things. Each one incrementally. I think I'm down to the point where the price of electricity is really where I have control.
Right, exactly.
And that's where you help.
Yep, we took care of that. So you knew what you were getting going in, and you know where it was at when it went up and when it went down. So, and that's what I like to make sure that people fully understand, because I enjoy making money, but I enjoy helping people even more. So my focus is to always go to give when I help people. I'm always looking at how can I be advantageous for them? What can I do to help them get where they want to go? Because inevitably, I learned this lesson a long time ago. The more I help people get to the place that they want to get to, I inevitably get paid from some other way, shape, or form. Not from the person that I helped, but that's just the way the universe works. When you do good, you get good back. I mean, I just had a land deal that came up here. I had helped somebody out on a book deal. I was not qualified for the book deal, so I handed it off to somebody, which just catapulted them. I didn't charge them. I didn't ask for anything. And here's what happened. I had a real estate deal that fell in my lap that was absolutely phenomenal about 11 or 12 months after that. So that's the thing. If you always go to give and not go with what's in it for me, because what's in it for me is usually a really bad path. But when you start learning to go to give, your life will change in a way that you cannot even fathom. You will be rewarded for the good things that you do. There's no doubt about it. I see it every day in my life.
Brian, we're just about at the end. And before we wrap everything up, I want to pull up your website and Amazon page just so people know what it looks like, and maybe you can kind of lead us through there a little bit.
All right. So yeah, if you go down below that, you can read some of the reviews on it. And I tell people, I just don't want them to go buy my book. I want them to go look at the reviews, read the reviews, and see the impacts that have been made, because I want them to be comfortable in making a decision on spending the money to buy the book. I want them to say, yep, I think this is the ticket here. I read the reviews. It's got good reviews on it, because I don't want somebody to go spend the money on my book, so I can make a couple dollars off of it. I want them to go get the book and read it, because it's going to change their life. If they get into it and read it and really follow the technology that's in it, and get a little bit of that checks and balances in their own life, because at the end of the day, you're the only one that's in control of how far down the success road that you truly make it. It's a decision that we have to get up and make every single day if we're going to have a good day or a bad day. And that's one of the things that I want to make sure that people are really comfortable before they spend that money on that book, because we all work hard for our money. There's no doubt about it. I want to make sure they get enough value from what they're spending.
Let's take a quick look at your website. Go ahead. Go ahead and tell us.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, if you go on down, I've got different things on there. There's podcasts. I've done a lot of those. The Art Concrete Specialties was the big company that I built since 1987. I sold it last year. And then there's my sidewood business, my firewood and windshield chips. And then if people are interested, like I said, I also do the electricity on saving people money and showing people how to make money with it as well, because it's one of those, it's an item that everybody has to have. It's either the second or the third largest monthly bill as a homeowner that they'll have. And when they can knock that bill down, then that means more money in their pocket at the end of the year. So there's the Think Energy. That's the company that I'm involved with. And there's a link down there for getting the book. You can go do that. You can book a session with me, a 30-minute call or a 20-minute call, whatever you want to do. And it's just a nice little clean way that I can communicate with my people. They can email me off of there. They can get little snippets of the book in there. They can get a free chapter too. They can get the first chapter for free if they want to do that as well.
As I remember, you are not selling electricity in every one of the 50 states. You are limited right now just to a few. Is that correct?
States. Now there's a lot of them that are still in the deregulation part of it, which is controlled a lot by the government. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of business out there to do. Most of my concentration is in Texas and in the northeast part of the United States, from Illinois all the way up into Maine, and all those states are wide open for us to do business in. So, and it's like I said, it's one of those things that everybody has to have. And I learned that, the dispensable or disposable money has dried up over the last 2 or 3 years. People do not have that money to do whatever they want to do. But when you deal with an item like electricity that everybody has to have, it's just a business that it's a win-win situation for everybody. There's no doubt about it.
Okay. As we're wrapping up today, please let people know how to contact you and what value you offer.
Well, if they want to get out of a job, I can get them sitting in the right direction. I do a lot of coaching, a lot of mentoring. My webpage is brianpenso.com, which is the one that you had up there. They can email me directly. There's just different ways, but I always try to give more value than what people are paying for. That is one of the biggest things that I focus on. But yeah, go into my webpage. There's different ways that you can contact me in there. And I'd be more than happy to sit down with somebody or get on a Zoom or however they want to do it, or a phone call. And let's see if we can open up some new roads. And there's a lot of people out there been on bumpy roads for a long time. They have 2 jobs or 3 jobs and they're still struggling. A job is not the ticket. You have to learn how to get a sideline business of some sort going that will grow organically even when you're not doing it. That's the key. That's what I help people do.
Thank you, Brian. For the audio audience that we have today, Brian, Brian, Penso, Penso. So brianpenso.com, BrianPenso.com. Brian, thanks again very, very much. I look forward to seeing you again. And on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, there are other shows that I think that you would fit in very, very nicely as a guest. And that's something that we can chat about down the road. So with that, I am not sure if Dr. Jacalyn's going to be back here to wrap things up with me or not. And we are just about at the end, and I have another show to do in less than 15. So I'm just going to go ahead and close out the show today. Thank you all very much. The shows are archived on youtube.com on the USA Global TV playlist on that particular channel. And I am red.olaughlin, and I will see you here just in a few minutes on Talking Heads. And thank you for joining us today on The Wise Ones, and thank Brian Penso for being our guest today. With that, I'm now leaving everything in our production engineer's hands, and I don't know what's going to happen next, but whatever it is, it's supposed to happen. So catch you all next week. Have a wonderful time. Bye now.
Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. My name is Roland Friedl, and maybe as you can recognize from my accent, I'm Austrian, so it's a small country in the middle of Europe, in the heart of Europe. And yeah, I'm 59 years old. I'm a father and a grandfather. And from my business background, after my very short but very successful corporate career, I was the youngest member of board of director in a huge business, in a huge company. I started my own businesses in different areas, in different industries, and I got a lot of experience, what is working, what is not working. And about 2.5 decades ago, I started a training, coaching, consulting company, Spartan Performance Systems, where I did and still do train and consult international huge businesses worldwide like Xerox and other big players in the world. So we do a lot of sales trainings and management trainings with my team in different languages. That's my main background in business. Besides that, I'm very engaged in men's work and also in the environment. That's my background, to make it short. So to be honest, I'm very curious about what's going on in the world. I love to learn. I love to travel. So my huge passion is traveling. Right now, as you can see the background, I'm sitting in my motorhome. So after 14 years living on a beautiful island, I decided to move into my motorhome and travel to Europe and live and work from my motorhome. So, and I got engaged to USA Global TV and Radio actually a year and around 9-10 months ago. A very good friend of mine, he contacted me and asked me if he can invite me for an interview on USA Global TV and Radio. I guess the show was called The Journey of My Life. And to be honest, in the beginning, I said no, because I had very bad experience on interviews in my business careers. I did it twice for a TV channel in Austria. And then they cut it and edited, and at the end, my comment was totally different than to the reality I said. So I said in the beginning, no, but I trusted this guy, so I said, okay, let's do it. He told me I don't have to fly to the US. I can do it from my home. At the time, this was his island in Mallorca. So, and it was an amazing, and a beautiful conversation. And then Dr. Jacalyn contacted me and asked me if I'm interested in becoming a co-moderator of a show. And so we started the Mallorca Connection, which is a weekly show on Monday, the Mallorca Connection. I got more and more involved. I became an elevated listener because I strongly believe it's important to listen first before you talk. And I had the chance to host and moderate and design my own shows like the Earth Show in the past, the Men shows. I became a talking head, an expert on business topics. So I hosted, moderated, I guess about more than 100, maybe 200, I have no idea, shows on USA Global TV and Radio, and I still do. And finally, we started the It's Your Healthy Lifestyle, a very good show, and we bring a new one on about the planet Earth. Yeah, that's a little bit what I'm doing here on USA Global TV and Radio. So why I'm doing this? First of all, I really love new medias. I love the platform. I love the work that this Dr. Jacalyn is doing to educate people. It's all about sharing, caring, and connecting and networking. And the benefit I got out of this in my personal experience, I learned a lot about myself, to be honest. I learned a lot about my strengths in moderating, in hosting, in talking live in front of a video camera. I learned a lot of myself, where are my strengths, where are my weak points that I have to improve. I met a lot of new interesting people. Some of them became friends of mine. Actually, after all, it's a hell of work, to be sure. Yes, it is, to be prepared, to invite people for the shows, to find new topics, to do research on the facts. But I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the industry, the media industry. I learned a lot about broadcasting, videos, interviewing. And as I said, I met a lot of interesting people, and also made new friends where I'm very happy for that. So yeah, USA Global TV and Radio, it's the platform to connect. It's about sharing and caring. And for me, USA Global TV and Radio is a huge family, and I'm very thankful and grateful for this experience. And yeah, and I guess the best is yet to come. Thanks a lot from Roland from Austria. Thank you. Bye.